Okay, let's run through the AP Top 25 Week 10 poll, shall we? After the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I'm not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college-related, sports-related. We have a good time. Today, I want to run through the AP Top 25 poll and rankings for Week 10, for which we should have some moving and some shaking. Let's get into it. Number 1, LSU got 1,476 points. I don't know why you would put LSU at number 1. I don't know what voters saw. I watched a good portion of LSU versus Auburn. I saw an Auburn defense that could play with LSU's offense. I didn't really see any remarkable separation. It looked like a number 2 team versus a number 9 team, quite honestly. And if Bo Nix is a better quarterback, they might end up winning that game. But as it stands, that's not the best team in college football. That is Ohio State. But we're going to talk about Alabama at number 2. Again, you're going to give them points for beating up on a middle school team masquerading as an FBS team, to which I need to say, hey, Alabama, stop scheduling these FCS teams. Stop scheduling these cupcakes. You might take a lump in strength of schedule rankings. That's a joke at Arkansas's expense, but they got it coming. You got beat 48-7 by a backup quarterback at Alabama, and Talia Tagovailoa got in there to throw some and look decent enough, I guess, but I expected Arkansas to put up more of a fight than this, and I understand that the Arkansas offense versus the Alabama defense is something else entirely, but I don't know why you necessarily want to have them 3 or 4 either, except to say when Tua Tagovailoa is back, they're one of the best teams in the country, and everybody expects him to play significantly in a showdown between what is now number 1 and number 2 in the AP Top 25 in 2 weeks from now. Got a bye week, and then we get the game that everybody's going to want to watch for not just the SEC West, but for college football supremacy. At number 3, Ohio State, which is literally, there are 2 points between LSU and Alabama, so that's a pick 'em. And then there are 8 points between Ohio State and LSU. Ohio State at number 3. Ohio State is the most complete team in college football, and if that's what you're looking for, great offense and an outstanding defense and good special teams, then that's what Ohio State is giving you. Everybody that you put in front of them, they've dispatched, and they've dispatched with prejudice. And we could talk about them putting 76 up on Miami of Ohio, or we could talk about them beating Wisconsin by 35 points. That is a destruction. Chase Young out there like Ndamukong Suh's ghost going, I came to get my boy's Heisman back. 4 sacks in that game for him, where he played all over. Even played a little bit of inside linebacker, which was just not fair. 6'6", 270 pounds. That dude can absolutely move, and he can fly. They're my number 1 team, but I'm not going to argue with them at number 3 because that means they're in the college football playoff, and then that's where the ranking doesn't really matter except for seeding. And I think Ohio State could beat any one of these football teams on the moon right now. It just doesn't matter. At number 4, Clemson, 8-0, a 59-7, just curb stomping of a bad Boston College team with a great running back in A.J. Dillon, but that's not going to be enough to beat a great Clemson defense. Like, we'll talk about Trevor Lawrence, who was efficient, the most efficient he's been all season. He's thrown 9 touchdown passes in the last 3 games. We could talk more about the interceptions he's thrown, but I prefer to talk about Brent Venables' defense, which is not giving up more than 14 points in a game except once, and that was against North Carolina, for which they gave up 20. They lost the entire defensive line last year, and they rotated in a bunch of new guys, and yet they don't miss a beat on defense. Clemson's defense is ridiculous, and it might be the only thing better than Ohio State's defense. And that's kind of cool when you think about they lost everybody that they lost last year. They lost 3 first-round draft picks on the defensive line, and all Brent Venables has done is said, so? And he's running through the ACC, which is a bad conference, which is a terrible conference, but they're the best team in it. And they are undefeated, which for me fits the bill. Number 4 in the country. We'll see what it means for them when college football playoff seeding comes around, should they finish the season undefeated. And number 5, we got Penn State, also 8-0. Really good win against a Michigan State team that is overmatched. People are talking about Mark D'Antonio might be out the door. I could see that. James Franklin's boys are playing well, and if they want respect, they get an opportunity to get it because they get Ohio State this year, and that will be a game for which we will all be watching, not just for Big Ten implications, but also for Rose Bowl and for, yes, college football playoff indication, because as much as we expect the team with the one loss from the SEC to get in, if Ohio State had the one loss, still won the Big Ten championship, I would put them in ahead, maybe, of Alabama or LSU, depending on how that game goes and how they play against Auburn, which ain't going to be no easy win, but it ain't the Auburn team that people thought it was going to be when they started the season. Number 6 is Florida at 7-1. We got the cocktail party this weekend between them and Georgia. That ought to be a lot of fun, and maybe end up with the Sugar Bowl representative coming out of that game, because I could just as easily see Florida going to the Sugar Bowl as Georgia. I think that they're much more evenly matched than people think, especially if Grenard is back on defense to be on the other side of Jabari Zuniga with C.J. Henderson back there, Sean Stevens. I mean, you can pick your poison here defensively. C.J. Henderson's Jim Thorpe Award semifinalist. We know that the last Jim Thorpe Award winner came from Georgia. J.R. Reed is a semifinalist. I expect this to be a really great game with the run game playing a big part of this. If Florida can run the ball, they might stand a chance of beating Georgia. But Georgia can run the ball, and after getting embarrassed by South Carolina, really, because that's the game that they shouldn't lose, they have everything still to play for. They still haven't taken a loss that can knock them completely out of contention. They could still win the SEC championship, but I'm going to be interested in the cocktail party like everybody else. At number 7, we got Oregon, who ended up getting a W over Washington State. That game was still going on last night when I went to bed. Oregon needs to run the table. They get USC this week, a USC team that pulled off a win that not a lot of people thought they could get to keep themselves alive coming out of the Pac-12 South. I really think that USC has what it takes to challenge Oregon offensively and defensively, but can you put the clamps on CJ Verdell? We'll see, right? If anybody's going to get an opportunity to beat them along the way, I think SC stands the best chance of anybody left. I mean, there's a couple other folks that you might throw in there, but Oregon can't afford to lose another game because they could end up being the Pac-12 champ after running the table against an Auburn team that most people thought was good. And they could end up being the representative in a college football playoff scenario if some things break their way. They need to get a W. Number 8, Georgia. I spoke about them a little bit. The only other thing that I would add is that this team is set up to win in November. They can run the ball. They can play defense. Anytime you can do those things, you stand a chance at competing for championships. Number 9, we got Utah. I mean, they looked really, really good yesterday. And if Tyler Huntley plays, they always can have an opportunity to throw the ball. It's about how good they're going to be when it comes time to throw the ball against teams that have better defensive backs. But I thought USC had defensive backs, and, you know, that loss might come back to haunt them. I thought Utah was going to be good. I expected them to be college football playoff good. But now they need Oregon to beat this SC team, and maybe they stand a chance to get into the Pac-12 championship. Number 10, Oklahoma. My Oklahoma. Yeah, it's the fine, cool. I mean, I could see you dropping them further than that. I could see them. Actually, I could see them. No, I can't see them ahead of Utah. I can't see them ahead of Georgia. I can't. Well, I mean, I guess I could see them ahead of Georgia because South Carolina's on par with Kansas State. So maybe that's there. But because Georgia's a couple weeks removed from its loss and Oklahoma's 48-41 loss to Kansas State in Manhattan is also, just fresh and it's new. But I think those losses are about the same. South Carolina plays a tougher schedule, but that's a luck of the draw. I think that they were just as capable of beating Georgia as Kansas State was of beating Oklahoma. They could play defense, and they got third down conversions when they needed third down conversions, among other things, right? So Auburn at 11 at 6-2. I would have had them a little bit further down, but I understand you're going to give them credit for losses, quality losses. I hate that, but you're taking a loss to LSU, you take a loss to Oregon, and you're still here. Fine, whatever. You played that game close against LSU. It's still a loss. But Baylor at 12, I think that's a top 10 team right now. I mean, 7-0. I get that they haven't played anybody that most people respect, but they beat a Kansas State team that's going to get more respect after what it did to Oklahoma. Charlie Brewer is a great NFL future prospect. Like, he's going to be good when he gets there. That dude can throw people open. And he's got guys like Denzel Mims and Tyquan Thornton, and those dudes ain't nothing to write home about really in the grand scheme of the wide receiver class in 2020 or even 2021. But I think that he has enough to compete, and I still expect Oklahoma's traveling down to Baylor to be a really good game. Thought both teams were going to be undefeated at the time. I was wrong. We'll see if Baylor can keep it up. They might be in the Big 12 championship. They don't catch a bad L here from somebody in particular along the way. They still got a pretty good portion of their schedule left to go. Minnesota at 8-0. Also, I could see them being a top 10 team. They're at number 13. They've been beating people pretty badly. Now, they're also going to get Penn State. They're going to get Wisconsin. They're going to get everybody that they need to get tested. And the best thing about this is the latter half of their schedule seems to be backloaded in a way that you would want to see teams get tested in November. They ain't going to play no FCS cupcakes like these SEC teams. And I would respect them if they can run the table there. For number 14, we got Michigan. Got a demonstrative win over Notre Dame last night in the Big House. Really good W for Jim Harbaugh, who needed one. Earlier in the week, there was talk of exit strategy. Now there's talk of we beat the Golden Domers, who have more or less had Michigan's number here of late. I don't necessarily know what to do with them offensively still, but if they can run the ball and they can play defense, and they got to Ian Book and they made that offense Notre Dame look silly, continue to do that, get into the Big Ten championship with a win over Ohio State. We're talking about Michigan in a whole nother different light. Cincinnati at number 17. 15 is not SMU. I was like, go. Southern Methodist could also be a top 10 team for me. They beat Houston late in a game that they probably should have won by 2 touchdowns, but the cover was nice if you expected Houston to cover the spread. Now you get SMU and Memphis and a 7 o'clock game on ABC. That's going to be a lot of fun. With American title implications, SMU looks like the least trustworthy undefeated team left, right? But I like them. I like Shane Buechele. I like the secondary. I like that they're just going to throw this ball to Prochet. They're going to hand this ball off to Xavier. And they're going to see what they can get. I dig them. I expect them to give a good game against Memphis, and I expect Memphis to be right there at the end. 16, Notre Dame, 5-2. All right, cool. Losses to Georgia, losses to Michigan. Both teams are ranked. I could have just as easily seen them outside of this top 25 as anybody else. At number 17, Cincinnati, right? Cincinnati has the one loss to an Ohio State team that is a juggernaut. They lost 42-0, though. That's a bad loss. Since then, they've knocked off Central Florida, and they keep just humming right along. Luke Fickell's team might be there at the end. We'll see. Number 18, we're talking about Wisconsin at 6-2. Wisconsin, who's taken back-to-back losses. One against Illinois, which is indefensible, and one against Ohio State, which most people would have picked, but I thought it would have been a closer game. Again, I could see them dropping out to the top 25, but at 18, we'll take it. Iowa, 6-2, 19. The best thing they did all weekend was shut out Northwestern. Northwestern ain't any good, but I always give teams credit for putting the goose egg in each one of the 4 quarters that you play, because there's so many plays in football for which one of them could have been broken. They could have gotten a field goal range, made a field goal. I'll give them credit for being outstanding defensively and just good enough offensively at number 19. Appalachian State, number 20. My group of 5 darling. I think that they're really the best team left among the group of 5, including SMU and, of course, Memphis. I think that the Mountaineers are going to have a lot of things to say. They go through November undefeated, and they beat up on a South Carolina team that beat Georgia. They win their championship in the Sun Belt. They'll be your New Year's 6 representative, I believe, unless SMU runs the table. But then again, things go right. We're talking about SMU being a college football playoff team, to which most of y'all would be upset. Number 21, Boise State at 6-1. Okay, cool. I mean, I could have seen them ranked higher. I understand that the loss hurts them against BYU because BYU isn't that good, but they're barely in this top 25. I would have just given them votes. I wouldn't have put them in here. Number 22, Kansas State jumps into the top 25 off of a win against Oklahoma. Had a loss against Oklahoma State. Really bad loss, honestly, and I didn't expect them to get this much credit for beating up on Oklahoma. It just shows to show you how much respect people have for what Oklahoma was doing, if hasn't done, because that was the number 1 offense in the country, the highest scoring offense in the country, a Heisman candidate at quarterback, a Biletnikoff Award dude at wide receiver. They've been playing really good defensively, and you took them apart. Kansas State, kudos to you. Being ranked inside the top 25 at number 22. Wake Forest at 6-1 is at 23. We'll see what it means for them when they play Clemson later this year. Memphis at 24. Get a top 25 matchup against SMU for a game that is going to have all kinds of implications. Memphis has just the one loss, and frankly, you should have lost to TU last night. If TU would have just recruited the kid that is 4 miles away from the university at Holland Hall, who's kicking for Columbia, who is an All-American, maybe you end up beating both Memphis and Southern Methodist. And wouldn't it have been great for Philip Montgomery to have those two pelts to show off in a year where his schedule is just loaded with dudes, man? They played Wyoming. They played San Jose State. They played Michigan State. I mean, you got Michigan State, who was ranked in the top 25. You got Wyoming that beat a Missouri team that was ranked in the top 25. You've got Houston that expected to be good. Still haven't played them yet, but you got them left. You got Navy, who is good, needed a late field goal to beat Tulane. I mean, just Cincy, you keep going through their schedule, and it might be the most loaded of any of the group of 5 teams, and that defense has been playing lights out. You get Memphis on the ropes. You got a game winner by the field goal kicker to win it, and he hooks it left at home on homecoming. Tough loss for them. Mike Norvell had coached at TU. You had to know he wanted to come in and get a W. You had to know there were TU folks that wanted to get a win. Really, just I feel for the kids more than anything else, and I really wish that TU would just spend the money to go recruit a kicker, particularly because there was one at Tulsa Union too that they could have got that they just missed on because they had to give a scholarship to the walk-on, and that ain't working out well, is it, Tulsa? By the way, my alma mater. I went to undergrad at TU, and I went to get my master's at Oklahoma. San Diego State at number 25. Fine, we'll take that. 7-1, good Mountain West team. Might maybe have the best defensive back in all of football in Luke Barku. Others receiving votes. Texas got 49, got knocked out of the top 25 with a loss to Texas Christian by 10, 37-27. Sam Ehlinger threw 4 picks in that game. Yikes. Navy at 43 after a good win against Tulane. Game winner, win 41-38. Good for them. Central Florida just stomped Temple. Just beat them senseless. Got 33 points. Washington got 19. Texas A&M got 14. USC got 11. Louisiana Tech got 6. USC got 11 off a win against Colorado on the road. That's a good football team that needs to play better. La Tech got 6. Indiana got 4. Indiana's surprising some people, man. They might raise some noise here. Pittsburgh got 1. Oklahoma State got 1 off a win against Iowa State. Iowa State got locked out of the top 25 with a loss to Oklahoma State. Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions in a game where he threw 62 passes. Can't do that and expect to win football games. I mostly don't have any problems except to say that I would have done some shuffling and some shoving. Only team that I might not have in this top 25. I mean, I can argue with you about Kansas State, but I won't. I mean, I'll take that because that would mean Navy, Texas, UCF, Washington, any one of those teams need to be in ahead of them, and they don't. So I guess I don't have any issues with the teams in the top 25. I don't just have issues with the shuffling, which is fine. All right, that is it for me. Doses.